"And how did a leader of smugglers," continued Franz, "venture to build a vessel designed for such a purpose at Genoa?" "I did not say that the owner was a smuggler," replied the sailor. "No, but Gaetano did, I thought. Gaetano had only seen the vessel from a distance. He had not spoken to anyone. And if this person be not a smuggler, who is he? A wealthy signor who travels for his pleasure. Come, thought Franz. He is still more mysterious, since the two accounts do not agree. What is his name? If you ask him, he says Sinbad the Sailor, but I doubt if it be his real name." "Sinbad the Sailor?" "Yes. And where does he reside?" "On the sea." "What country does he come from?" "I do not know." "Have you ever seen him?" "Sometimes." "What sort of man is he?" "Your Excellency will judge for yourself." "Where will he receive me?" "No doubt in the subterranean palace Gaetano told you of." "Have you never had the curiosity, when you have landed and found this island deserted, to seek for this enchanted palace?" "Oh yes, more than once, but always in vain. We examined the grotto all over, but we could never find the slightest trace of any opening. They say that the door is not opened by a key, but by a magic word." "Decidedly," muttered Franz. "This is an Arabian Nights adventure." "His Excellency waits for you," said a voice, which he recognized as that of the sentinel. He was accompanied by two of the yacht's crew. Franz drew his handkerchief from his pocket and presented it to the man who had spoken to him. Without uttering a word, they bandaged his eyes with a care that showed their apprehensions of his committing some indiscretion. Afterwards, he was made to promise that he would not make the least attempt to raise the bandage. He promised. More Arabian Nights references here in Chapter 31 and The Count of Monte Cristo and works of Alexandre Dumas. Spoiler alert, since yesterday, I have not read The Arabian Nights. I hear it's quite a tome with a history unto itself. I need to investigate it a little bit further. I only know of it in passing through things like this and Disney's Aladdin, etc. Feels like it'll be a fun little research hole to go down. But let's talk a bit more about what's happening in the story today. Very dialogue heavy between Franz and the sailor. The sailor not really knowing anything about the signor, the chief. But when asked his name, the sailor says that he calls himself Sinbad the Sailor, quote, "but I doubt if this be his real name," end quote. Aren't you glad I don't do those voices while reading the actual book? I think back to when I did the voices for Caderousse early on, and I'm like, oh, that's a little cringe. But you know what? We live, warts and all, here on the Countdown of Monte Cristo. Sinbad the Sailor, 8 years hence, and he's still using that moniker that he used with Julie to save Morel from destruction. Clearly, Sinbad is something that means something to Dante, though not being given a lot of insight into Dante before his imprisonment. We don't exactly know how or why. In the imprisonment, he wouldn't have had access to the Arabian Nights. Would that have been something that the Abbe, remember when the Abbe Faria, remember the Abbe Faria? Oh my God, that feels like 100 years ago. Was telling him that you really only need X amount of books to know what you need to know about how to get around in the world. I wonder if one of those texts was the Arabian Nights. But he still wouldn't have been able to read it. Dante wouldn't have been able to read it. Would he have heard stories related to him by Faria and then, when free, go out to buy the book, learn it, read it, love it, see a parallel between himself and Aladdin's cave, or Ali Baba's cave, as Franz calls it? Who's to know? I can't imagine that this chapter is going to go deep into Dante's love of literature, but who knows? Maybe it will. I don't know much about the Count of Monte Cristo. At this point, we have passed all of my previous knowledge of what this story entails. Any memory I had of the Monte Cristo story was limited strictly to the imprisonment. I have no idea what comes from here. Maybe the last 3/4 of this book is just a literary review of 1001 Arabian Nights. There's only one way to find out, and that's to continue here tomorrow with a little bit more of the Count of Monte Cristo We have passed the halfway point of Chapter 31, folks. We've passed it. So I'm not going to go into the whole rigmarole, but I will just say, you know what? It's going to be a long time before you hear me say this again. You can contribute over at patreon.com/gruntworkpod for as little as $1. That's like 3 cents an episode. Less than that if you listen and support to other shows like Odyssey, like Movie Memory Machine. $1 can get you access to all those things. All the bonuses, all of the everything to all of the shows. And then it's less than 3 cents an episode. At that point, it's like we're contributing to you. So you can find all of that over at patreon.com/gruntworkpod. Deeply appreciate it. Join me here tomorrow as we continue forth down Chapter 31 of The Count of Monte Cristo. Until then, goodbye. The Countdown of Monte Cristo is part of the Gruntwork Podcast Network. This show is produced, edited, and hosted by Landon Solano. The original text of The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexander Dumas. Theme song by Magic Solo. If you want to support the show and others like it, visit patreon.com/gruntworkpod. Thank you for listening. See you tomorrow.